Oh, where do I start with this one? Well, maybe with the title. I mean, yes, it kind of works as a cheeky allusion to the fact that this is someone carrying on a previous author's work. But I'm sorry, there are rules to the appointment of a Hitchhiker's book title, i.e., it has to be a quote from the first one. For me, Don't Panic is the great unused Hitchhiker's title. And yes, I know this isn't from the first one, and I'm contradicting what I'm saying here, but we apologise for the inconvenience. God's final message to his creation from So Long and Thanks for All the Fish at least has the same quality of Hitchhiker's title to rank alongside Like the Universe and Everything. Unlike And Another Thing, being a largely unmemorable one-note pithy quip from So Long and Thanks for All the Fish also.
The storm had now definitely abated, and what thunder there was now grumbled over more distant hills, like a man saying, "And another thing," 20 minutes after admitting he's lost the argument.
Sorry, I'm digressing already. So in 2009, Adams's estate made the questionable decision to grant Owen Colfer, the Artemis Fowl author, permission to pen the sixth instalment of the Hitchhiker's trilogy. Now, I'm not adverse to the existence of this book, per se. Adams himself had stated a desire to pen a sixth instalment to retcon the end of Mostly Harmless. And believe me, no one wants to scrub away the existence of the ending to that book more than I do. A good book is a good book, and had Colfer penned a good book featuring my favourite characters, I would have embraced this wholeheartedly. The thing is, this isn't a good book. It's tedious, it meanders, and suffers from an inalienable lack of purpose. And before you say it, yes, I know, so do these videos. For a Hitchhiker's novel to succeed, it has to be a great science fiction story, and very funny, and it's neither. The only spark of imagination it has is in the retconning stuff. It would have been easy to have Zaphod turn up straight away and rescue Arthur, Ford, Random and Trillian from the disintegrating Earth. Colfer doesn't do this straight away, and instead introduces an imaginative scenario where the guide creates a virtual ideal life scenario for the four remaining characters, having them experience a further 60 years of life in a mere matter of nanoseconds, before returning them to Stavro Beta mere seconds before the destruction of Earth. Believe me, when I read this passage, I did get my hopes up that maybe we were in safe hands. Unfortunately, nothing as imaginative as this takes place in the entirety of the rest of the novel. I mean, if you need any further evidence that this book just doesn't cut the mustard, simply compare the plot of this to the first novel, in which we are introduced to a plethora of imaginative ideas, from the destruction of Earth to make way for a hyperspace bypass, the Heart of Gold, the galaxy's sleekest starship whose warp engine is powered by improbability, Magrathea, a planet dedicated to the construction of other planets, the revelation that the answer to life, the universe and everything is the number 42, the further revelation that Earth wasn't actually a planet, but a giant supercomputer constructed to find the question to that answer, and that Magrathea was in the process of the construction of Earth Mark II, tying it all up nicely with the destruction of Earth from the earlier chapters. Compare that as a story to what happens in And Another Thing, where the characters go to a planet called Nano, and that's it. The character of Nano amounts to much of nothing really, not to mention completely contradicting the B-Arc storyline from The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. Colfer's attempts at Adams' style of stream of logical consciousness guide entries bog down the story. Ultimately, they don't work because they're not funny and break up the narrative flow. It's actually quite hard to follow the logic of some of them without some diligent concentration. This is fan fiction. You have to feel a tonal connection to the previous work. But the thing is, Adams would not have written this. There are far too many nods and callbacks to the previous novels, the return of Wowbagger, repeating of Hitchhiker's memes peppered throughout the narrative in order to delude the Hitchhiker's fan base that they're reading a legitimate entry in the series. Adams was not a fan of his own work, at least not to the extent that his actual fans are, and he never penned anything produced merely to satiate a fan base. The great thing about Adams' work, and the reason it feels so original, was that the concepts inherent in his work were the most important thing first and foremost, not Hitchhiker's memes. If I was to give this story any credit, I'll say Colfer does manage to capture the voices of the characters well, if not their motivations. Trillion's romance with Wowbagger feels unconvincing, and included, it seems, just because something has to happen in the story. For years I actually ignored this entry as canon, and probably would not have even bothered reviewing it in this video series if it wasn't for the fact that the radio adaptation featuring the original cast hadn't given it some legitimacy in recent years. It exists. Is it the worst novel ever written? No. Is it the worst Hitchhiker's novel ever written? Hands down, yes. I think I need to end these here. So that's all I've got to say on the Hitchhiker's novels. As a series of books, they are my favourite ever written. Yes, they all have their problems, but A Genius on a Bad Day is still a far more enticing prospect to read than A Hack Writer on a Good Day. I've been reading them for years, and I'm sure I will continue for many more. So thanks for joining me, folks, and I hope you'll join me for the next video, in which I take a look at the Hitchhiker's TV series from 1981. And until then, this is me, Big Buddha, signing off, and I really hope you know where your towel is.